Hi everyone, it's Vicki. Welcome to my channel, and today I'm going to do a mask from my BoxyCharm. I thought I'd use some of the products and a new type of cleansing face wipe. I did wash my face earlier in the day, but now it's like 5 o'clock in the afternoon, early evening, so I can do it again. And then also going to try some of this brand, this what is it called? I forgot the brand now. It's by Same Institute Transport. That's what they're called. They had a different name. Sorry, I'm going off. Anyway, it is 50 little pads, and I say little because they're super thin. It's real easy to pick up 2 or 3 or 4 of them at a time. They are like a exfoliant, but without like grit, sand, salt, whatever's in the others. I noticed some of them are salt because when I get them on my lips I can taste the salt in them. So anyway, before we do this, we're going to cleanse and exfoliate just using these products. So alright, so this is Refreshments Cleansing Wipes that I have not opened yet, and I don't know if it tells me much anything else about it. By Beauty Perspectives is the company. So let's just open it up. It's brand spanking new. I don't know, it doesn't really have much of a scent here. I did get a brand of these one time in a beauty box that I loved so much, and it might have been this one, because these 2 items came out of a rebuy through BoxyCharm, so I think this is the one. Yeah, it's nice and thick. It's like the good napkin, the good paper napkins at a restaurant. All right, so let's just do a quick wipe and let's see what comes off. Yeah, so these are nice. Not really a lot of scent. What little scent it has isn't what I would call particularly nice scent. I mean, it's not bad, but it's certainly not anything perfumed or anything like that. It's not it's not unpleasant, but it's not pleasant. But anyway, I'm going to just pass that on and go to these. Now these, I'm going to try to just get one. It's not easy to do because they are super, super thin. I'll show you. See how thin they are? And I'm sure you're supposed to probably use a couple of them, but I just use the one and I just fold it over so it's too thick, easier to hang on to. It's impossible to do a single thickness for me. And they had just a little bit of burn to them. Oh yeah, I forgot. I just used tweezers a little bit on my face. Oh, it really burns where you just use tweezers. And I like to get right here beside my nose. A little bit of a burn going on here. So while this is kind of drying off here, I'm going to just show you the mask I'm going to use. It is the Fiji Collagen Whip Vitamin Mask. And that green down there is the color of the mask. And I have put this on before. I think the day I got it, I put some on. So that's what we're going to use. And I just figured mini. Okay, so the issue is the dog beds. So I have 3 dog beds in every room. Okay, so I just rearranged the dog beds so they're further apart from each other. So I thought what I'd do during my mask was just have a little story time. I had jury duty yesterday. That went really well. So I thought I'd just tell you some of my jury duty experiences. But yesterday what happened was they had us all in there, and they gave us a break. We had to be there by 8:30. I had to check in by 8:30. And at 9 o'clock, they came and said, explain the processes. And they said that we would have a break from 9 to 9:20 so that people could, use the restroom, get water, do whatever they wanted to do, use the vending machines, and get their $15 because they pay $15 in cash to jurors. Well, when that was all over, then they came back at 9:30, so 10 minutes after that second announcement about payments, and said, well, there were 4 cases to be heard today. And out of 4 cases, all 4 of them have been postponed, delayed, whatever. And so out of the 4 judges that usually request jurors, and he usually tells the people in that office how many jurors to send to his courtroom, all of them said they didn't need any. So by 9:30, we were all released. So counts as jury duty, can't get summons for another year. So, all right, I think we're dry enough. It's a little sticky, but I think we're dry enough. Okay, you can see it's green, and it's very consistency of, I don't know what to call it. It's like slippery mud. All right, so I am not the best mask putter oner. I see people put it on, and it's just so even and beautiful, and, you know, I'm going to look like an alien. Actually, what I was saying is, when I put it on before, I go, oh, it's the same color, almost the same. Well, as it dries, it'll become the color of the Statue of Liberty. Yeah. Yeah, this is not a peel off either. This is a wash off. So it's really the messy ones, in my opinion. The peel offs are kind of interesting, although you just have to get the right thickness to get it to come off right. Oh shoot, I got it all in my eyebrows. Like I said, I'm not a great mask putter runner. What is the secret to getting masks even? Look at that mess. Yeah, it's a little messy. All right, let's close that up. And oh, so it said 10 minutes, so I'm starting my timer now. So jury duty. All right, so I have been called for jury duty more than any person that I know personally. And one of my friends here is she's like 47, and she is a lifelong resident of Florida, and she's never been called. My husband's been called once since we've been married for 35 years. He's been called once. My family, I have family members here, and none of them have been called. So I've been called for two interesting cases. One was when I lived in Antioch, Alaska, and one was when I lived in Seattle, Washington. 80s, and I'm going to say mid 80s. You can look it up because this is a big case. It was what they call the Wami massacre case. And what happened, to my recollection, I'm telling you a story 40 years later or 35 years later. My recollection is there was in what they call the International District. Other cities have what they call Chinatown or something like that, but Seattle doesn't use that term. But it is called the International District, and really, probably more correctly when I lived there, probably the Asian District would have been a good term for it. Lots of different Asian restaurants and stores and things like that. So apparently one of the, I think, Chinese restaurants, and again, you can look it up. It's been a long time for my memory. But they had like a gambling, like a speakeasy type thing underneath the store or in the back of the store or something. And people would come. It seemed as though it was like somewhat wealthy people. I don't know if they were other business owners or just wealthy members of the community or just whatever. They would come there and they would gamble. And of course, gambling wasn't legal in Washington, at least not at that time. I don't think it is now either. So it was kind of a behind the scenes thing going. Well, one night when people were there, and apparently they get all dressed up wearing their, jewels and stuff and go do this. This was a pretty big deal. One night there were 2 or 3, I guess, young men who came in there, and they shot and killed everyone in the speakeasy and stole all the money and all the jewels and everything. Well, at least they thought they killed everyone. They left one person alive they didn't realize was alive. So it was a big deal because now they have an eyewitness, someone who was there and able to identify them in some way. So it was such a big deal that there were all these rumors that went around. I mean, when you kill, I think it was 13 people were killed, I want to say. I'm not sure. That might not be the right number either. I should have looked it up and refreshed my memory, but I'm just kind of talking off the cuff. Anyway, so there were all these rumors about, it was the Chinese mafia and all this stuff. Well, it turned out to be 3 young men. I mean, so it wasn't any big conspiracy thing like, all the rumors that fled. Then they were saying that, when they were saying it was the Chinese mafia, they were saying, yeah, and that the jurors and the lawyers and all those people, judges, everybody might be killed for their participation if they try to convict anybody or whatever. And then they at one point said, well, all the jurors are going to have to be sequestered for their safety. So they never told us that this was the case, but we knew it was the case because they had such a huge jury pool that they gave us all color groups, and like you're in the blue group, the red group, whatever. There were so many people called that someone that I worked with actually also got called. I mean, that's quite coincidental. And then, it was all going on. The jury was being picked at a time. I mean, you could hear about it on the news at the time when I was having to call in. So it was pretty obvious what was going on. But anyway, my group, I had to call in quite a while. They went through, I can't remember if they went through 1 or 2 color groups, but mine was like the next one. And I ended up not having to go. So the next time I went was when I lived in Antioch, Alaska. And I always get jury duty as I'm moving. It seems it never fails. And this happened in Antioch because we were leaving the town the next day. I mean, we didn't even have furniture and stuff anymore. Everything was packed away, and gone. And I had gotten a jury summons earlier, and I had said, well, I can't do it because, I'm leaving, and that's like my last full day in town. Well, the magistrate pulls up on his 4-wheeler and says, and we kind of knew him, and he says, Vicki, we really need you. It's hard to get people who, who aren't related to other people in town because it's a small village, although you can still serve. But it's nice to have people who aren't related and who haven't served again and again. It's kind of like I'm a fresh person in the jury pool. So he talked me into it. So I went. And it was very interesting because it wasn't the kind of case you're thinking of where there's a defendant and a prosecutor. This was a coroner's something. Was it called a coroner's inquest? I've heard that term before. But basically, the medical examiner, coroner, whoever, they call it coroner, cannot sign off on a death certificate without a cause of death. And without a body, they weren't allowed to determine a cause of death. Now, I don't know if Alaska's changed its rules since then, but that's what it was. So basically, it was declaring someone dead. And the first case we looked at was one that was very near and dear to everybody in town. I mean, they all were because everybody kind of knows everybody. Although not everybody lived in the village I lived in that was involved, but it's the borough, I think. But anyway, it was the city manager and then the postmistress's husband who had gone hunting, and they didn't come home, and eventually they found the plane that they had taken, and it was upside down in the lake. And the city manager was still in the plane because he had kind of, what do they call it, messed with his seatbelt thing. It wasn't working right, and so he kind of like messed with it, rigged it somehow, and he couldn't get it off apparently, and he was just stuck in there. And the other person, the postmistress's husband, he did get out of the plane, apparently, because his body wasn't found in there, and it wasn't found anywhere. Now, this was a deep lake, very cold, and they, the state troopers who were, the fish and wildlife officers are state troopers in Alaska. They're just kind of like 2 divisions of the state troopers. Anyway, they were explaining to us that it was like when there's cold, well, they had some other expert too, I think. But anyway, that when it's really cold, that a body can float down and not come up because of the cold. And so it could be years, if ever, that they would show up. And I was really conflicted in determining this person as deceased. It had been a while, but it had been not that long before that his wife was somewhere and saying to people, she just knew he was going to come spring walk out of the woods, come out and we'd find him, and don't give up hope. You believe that, right? He'll come out of the wood, right? She's saying to even me, and who I knew her, but not really well. And yeah, you're trying to give her, okay, You don't want to say to a grieving person, nope, he's gone. You don't want to say that, So you just go, I have faith or whatever. I don't even know what I said. Who knows? It was so long ago. But that was in like 1991. So we got that case solved pretty early in the day. And so the magistrate says, well, since I have you for the day, we have a bunch more cases. And they weren't like on that one, they had a videotape. They were videotaping when they crashed their plane. And so, they had some pretty good evidence, and they had, pictures of the plane and everything. Well, the rest of them, not so much. But they had a long list of people. They thought it would take us all day to decide and to get through that, but it didn't. It was, it was pretty quick. And anyway, so like there was one where somebody's boat and had, been found ashore, and his life vest, a mile down the river more. People use the rivers a lot, rivers and lakes a lot in the summer and the fall. They fly into places, they take their boats. So most of these things we saw, almost all of them actually, were water related. But basically, they were all instances where we could be pretty sure that the person perished as opposed to just purposely disappearing. And so we did, declare, I don't know, like 8 people, I think it was, 6 or 8 people deceased, so that they could get death certificates, insurance could kick in, their families could move on, because your family's really held up during all of that. I think I've had my 10 minutes. And is it getting lighter? It looks lighter to me. I have had my 10 minutes. So it was interesting. It was very interesting. It was kind of sad, but it was very interesting. Rural Alaska is not very forgiving. The whole outside nature wilderness part of Alaska is not very forgiving. If you're in town and you fall and break your leg while you're doing something in grocery shopping or something, people are going to come to your aid. There's going to be medics, whatever. You're out hunting, you fall out of a tree, break your leg, you can't move, you can't get anywhere, and you spend a night outside, you start to get hypothermia, you're just not going to make it sometimes. Where, in a more urban environment, there's going to be other people around, but you get out in the wilderness, it's a different story. So anyway, I don't mean to sound depressing. It was, all in all, it was helpful to the families to be able to move past that part of it, of not being able to move forward with a lot of things until there is a death certificate. So, all right, so let's go get this mask off. Okay, I have a bucket of water, which isn't as warm as I like, but I don't like to waste water and letting it get warm. So as I'm removing this, I'll tell you about I had another jury duty experience when I was in Kodiak. I didn't serve, but I almost did. So, yeah, this is really lightened up, can you tell? And it's very crackly. So I waited for quite a while with all the other jurors. Okay. In the main area before they started picking people to go into the courtroom. And I don't know how many jurors they needed. I think it was 11 or 12. And then they brought 2 extras. So I wasn't one of the 11 or 12 called. But when they wanted to have a couple other extra people in there, I was one of them. In fact, I think I was the very last one. So we're sitting in there just waiting. There was a lot of hurry up and wait in that particular courtroom. And I could see the defendant. And you had to say if you know anybody in town. Well, yeah, it's a small town. I knew the plaintiff's lawyer. I knew him. I knew his wife pretty well, actually. But that didn't get you out of it because they said, well, it's a small town. People are going to know people. So long and short of it is, I sat through all the people that they questioned, and they were down to the person next to me. So I was the very next person to be questioned. before they decided they had enough jurors. However, we were only like 2 or 3 people in, if even that, when a group of women came in to the courtroom and sat behind the plaintiff or whatever's legal table. And the moment I saw them, that group of women, I said, I cannot serve on this jury because I know what this is. And what it was is I had volunteered for the women's shelter, the crisis center, for many, many years. I answered their crisis line for, I don't know, I lived in Kodiak, I forgot how many years, 11 years, and I think I answered their crisis line 9 of those 15 years. I took an advocacy class and stuff. And anyway, and then later, the last 4 or 5 years, I think that it was there, I served on their board of directors. And when the executive director and the lead advocate and all these people come in, I knew this was what do they call them now? They don't say domestic violence. They say something interpersonal. No, not interpersonal. Anyway, where someone that you are in a personal relationship with, does something violent to you. But it's I'll just say domestic violence because that's a word we all know. It's just not the preferred language anymore, I don't think. And so I knew that I wouldn't be picked. I mean, once they got to talking to me, but there was no way to tell them. So I had to sit through, like, listening to 9 or 10 people be questioned and, about whatever, as the lawyers decided if they wanted that person or they didn't want that person. So then finally they get to the person in front of me. I'm going to be the next one. And that's when they said they had enough. It's like, I just sat through like 2 hours of this when I knew 2 hours ago I wasn't going to be picked. But anyway, that was my jury duty experience. And this is my first mask that I've ever done. I thought about doing it on Monday because I see so many people do masks Monday. And I thought, you know what? Let's just do something different. Okay, so now it's all, ooh, yeah, my skin does feel pretty soft. Let's see, let it dry off a little. Okay, so it's been not too long. It still has a little bit of, still feels pretty moist. Maybe it's going to stay that way. It feels soft, but as it's drying more, I do feel like I do want to put on moisturizer. Like, yeah. And the water, it's a little green. It's not too bad. It's quite a bit of water, though. So, I took a quick look in the mirror again, and there are little splotches on it. Well, thanks so much for spending the last, 20 minutes with me. Sorry it took so long. Talking about jury duty and doing a mask. And again, this is a due from the gods. Fiji Fuji. This is right. These are, I think, all these items are available on BoxyCharm's website for quite a reduction in price. Because, I think it's kind of like Culty Box. After the month's gone a bit, they have some, they have extra inventory and they really slash the prices. So if you're interested, I think you can buy from that website without getting a BoxyCharm, but I'm not positive. But that's how it appears to me. Thanks again. Bye-bye.